please turn to the next blank page in your journal. Put today's date up at the top. Your title for today's lesson is Converting Fractions to Decimals Using Place Value. If you need to review your place value chart, hit pause and flip back in your journal to do a quick review. Let's get started. The first few questions ask me to write the fraction in word form and as a decimal. So let's look at number 1. The correct way to say 4/10 is 4/10. So let's write that in words. 4/10. So there's word form. Now I need to write it as a decimal. I know that since it has tenths, it comes after the decimal. So I'm going to start with the 0 for a placeholder in the ones place if there's no whole number. Put my decimal, and then the tenths place as one place behind the decimal. I have the number 4 to fill in, so 4/10 as a decimal is 0.4. Let's look at number 2. The correct way to say 14/100 using place value words is 1400ths. So let's write that in words. 1400ths. Since it's hundredths, I know it's going to be behind the decimal. So I'm going to put a 0 for a placeholder since there's no whole number. The hundredths place is 2 places behind the decimal, tenths, hundredths. So I fill in my numerator, 14. So the correct way to write 14/100 or 1400ths as a decimal is 0.14. Let's try a couple more like this together. Number 3. The correct way to say 7/100 is 700ths. So let's write it in word form. 700ths. And remember, hundredths is 2 places behind the decimal, tenths, hundredths. I have no whole number, so I put a 0 as a placeholder in the ones place. Now notice, I only have one number to fill in for now, and that's a 7. The 7 must go in the hundredths place. I do not have a number to go in front in the tenths place, so I put a 0 for a placeholder. So the correct way to write 700ths as a decimal is 0.07. Let's try number 4 together. Number 4 gives me 9/1000. The correct way to say that using place value words is 9/1000ths. So let's write that in words. 9/1000ths. Remember, thousandths is 3 places behind the decimal, tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So I must fill in all 3 places. There is no whole number, so I'm going to put a 0 in the ones place. And since I have 9 thousandths, then 9 must go in the thousandths place. There are no tenths, there's no hundredths, so I put 0s for placeholders. So the correct way to write 9 thousandths as a decimal is 0.009. Now, let's change things up a little bit. Look at number 5 and number 6. Notice my denominator of 2 and denominator of 20 is not a place value word like I had on questions 1 through 4. On 1 through 4, all of my denominators were either tenths, hundredths, or thousandths. But since these are not in tenths, hundredths, or thousandths, we want to see if we can write an equivalent fraction to change our denominators into tenths or hundredths or thousandths. So let's look at 1/2. I want to know, is there anything I can do to my denominator of 2 to change it into a tenths, hundredths, or thousandths? Well, I can change it into a 10, or 100, or 1,000, but I like to go with the smallest choice, which is the tenths. So now we know how to write equivalent fractions. So I have to ask myself, what do we do to get from 2 to 10? And that's multiply by 5. So if I multiply the denominator by 5, I have to multiply the numerator by 5. So an equivalent fraction for 1/2 is 5/10. Now, how would I write 5/10 as a decimal? You're right, 0.5, because the 5 is in the tenths position. So let's look at number 6. I have 15/20. I need to see if I can change the denominator of 20 into 10, 100, or thousandths. I know that if I divide by 2, I can get from 20 to 10. But notice, if I try to divide the numerator by 2, I'm not going to get an even number. I'm going to have a remainder. I cannot have a remainder, so that is not going to work. So we're going to have to try to change 20ths into hundredths or thousandths. I go with the lowest one possible, so that's hundredths. So I'm going to put my denominator of 100. And then I have to ask myself, what do I do to get from 20 to 100? I multiply by 5. So if I multiply denominator times 5, I have to multiply numerator times 5. So I'm going to come to the margin and multiply 15 times 5. 5 times 5 is 25, carry the 2. 5 times 1 is 5, 5 plus 2 is 7. So 15/20 is equivalent to 75 hundredths. Now that we have a denominator that's a place value word, I can write it quickly and easily as a decimal. So 75 hundredths is going to be 0.75. Let's try a couple more together. Number 7, I have the fraction 1/4. Notice fourth is not a place value word, so I need to see if I can change it into a place value word. Can I change it into tenths? No, because there's nothing I can do to get from 4 to 10. Let's see if I can change it into hundredths. Can I do anything to get from 4 to 100? Yes, there is. I know that there are 4 quarters in a dollar, so I know that 4 times 25 is 100. So I have to multiply the numerator by 25. So an equivalent fraction to 1/4 is 25 hundredths. Now notice, I didn't read the directions on the last one, so let's go ahead and follow the directions. They want me to, after I write the equivalent fraction, they want me to write it in word form. So that's 25 hundredths. And then the correct way to write 25 hundredths as a decimal is 0.5. Let's look at number 8. Number 8 says 24 2/5. Notice this time I have a whole number, so don't forget about that whole number. Let's concentrate on the 2/5 for a minute. Notice fifths is not a place value word, but I want to see and change it into a place value word. I know quickly that I can change 5 or fifths into tenths, and I can do that by multiplying by 2. 5 times 2 is 10, so that means I also have to multiply the numerator by 2. So what fraction is equivalent to 2/5? You're correct, 4/10. So now if I write it in word form, don't forget your whole number. I have 24 and 4/10. 24 and 4/10. Now, most of you are going to say, but 4/10 is not simplified. I know. The 2/5 is the simplified version. But I want to get my denominator to be a place value word so that I can quickly write it as a decimal. So the 24 and means 24 decimal. 4/10 is going to be 0.4. So my correct answer is 24.4. Please hit pause and write any questions in your journal that you need to ask. When you're finished writing your questions, hit play again. Now it's time for you to try 4 questions on your own. Please have your 4 answers checked when you are finished.